Alright, with this video, I want to discuss two more contagions that took place that would start off World War One. One of them was very similar to the ones we talked about the other day, and that was the contagion of militarism we talked about the other day, wanting to build it up, but not just militarism of having one of the best militaries, best army, best navy, but something called an arms race. What they were wanting there was the most technological army, the army with the biggest guns, not just the most amount of people, not just the best trained, but the biggest weapons that could be there. And you can see very quickly how this would cause an issue, because you would have one side, let's take Britain, would want to have guns that could shoot a shell that weighed 15 pounds. Well, then France looks at it and says, I want a gun that could shoot 20 pounds. Germany says, I want a gun that could shoot 25 pounds. Well, now if they go to war, Germany's guns outweigh English guns, and by the shells that they have, they're by 10 pounds. So Britain's like, well, I can't let that happen. So they make bigger guns. Well, then Russia steps in and says, well, I'm going to make bigger guns. And then France and Spain and Italy and Austria, Hungary, and all these countries begin piling their weapons and stockpiling these munitions. Not only that, but they also, these different countries, begin to develop plans for themselves of what they would do and how they would go about conquering other nations if they went to war with them. Germany had a plan specifically designed to how would they destroy the alliance between France and Russia. Remember, after Wilhelm II allowed the alliance to expire between Germany and Russia, France formed an alliance between Germany and Russia, or excuse me, between France and Russia. And so they have this alliance now, and so Germany looks at us and says, we need to come up with a plan, an idea of what we can do to go through and destroy both of these nations, both of these countries and empires, before they can combine their forces and destroy us in the middle. Because Germany has the problem of being the center of Europe. Russia is on their east coast, their east border, and Germany has France on the western border. And so it's a big problem there. But one other contagion was the idea of nationalism. Now, we talked about imperialism, and we talked about nationalism some. And mainly I've dealt with nationalism is that you want your nation to be great. You want it to be powerful. You want it to be strong. This nationalism is similar to that, but does have a few key differences. This nationalism is mostly geared towards the idea and the mindset that a nation, a people group, remember, that's what a nation is. A nation is not necessarily an area with set borders and laws, things like that. It is a people group. We here in the United States have the Cherokee Nation, the Native American tribe that's there. They do not have a border area that they control, that they are a country, and all those kind of things there. No, they're in the United States, but they are a nation of people. Well, there were a lot of empires around the world that were controlling nations of people, and those people wanted liberty. They wanted self-rule. And that was becoming more and more of a problem across Europe, especially with countries and empires like Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman empires. There were groups of people, nations of people, that were starting to rise up and cause problems. There were also, with just not just the idea of freedom and independence, there was communist movements and fascist movements that are going through there that are really causing some problems for them. Austria-Hungary and the area of the Balkans especially. If you have your book, page 311 talks about this here with a really good map. They show there the Balkans. That's the area where you have Bulgaria, Romania, Serbia, and you see there was this Austria-Hungary. Later, it would be broken apart into the countries of Austria and the country of Hungary when that gets broken apart there. But they controlled many different nations of people in that area. One of the nation groups that is still around in that area today and was very prevalent back then was a group called the Serbs or Serbians. Now, later, Serbia would become its own country after World War I, after all this happened. But there was this nation of people called the Serbs that was controlled by the Austria-Hungarian Empire. And within this group oftentimes there were revolutionaries, people that wanted to go and change the way the system was. They wanted to go through and alter things. They wanted to make themselves independent. And these were young, these were excited, these were energetic, mostly single men of military age between 17 and 25 years old that would lead these revolts. Well, one day in June of 1914, there was the Archduke. His name was Franz Ferdinand, and he was the crown prince of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, meaning that when his father would die, he would be the next emperor of Austria-Hungary. A very prestigious title, very good position that he would have there. And he was kind of a moderate. Now, it depends on what historians you look at there, but a moderate meaning that he actually did push for more autonomy or more self independence for these people groups that are within his empire. He wanted them to have a say. Well, no matter how much the authority of empires say things, there will always be radical groups that don't believe them, that want to go against them, that want to rebel where they can. And one of those rebellion groups, one of those independence movements was called the Black Hand. And this was made up of young Serbians. Now, in this Balkan region, as I mentioned, in June of 1914, Franz Ferdinand, the Archduke of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, was touring the city and in the area of Bosnia and Herzegovina. I probably pronounced that last part wrong there, but that's where he was. He was in that area there, touring his city. And he wanted to see what was there. He wanted to see what was going on. And obviously, when the crown prince shows up to your city, they threw a parade. And so they go through this. Well, this Black Hand movement group used this as an opportunity. They used this as a chance to try and assassinate, murder this Archduke. And this is what I asked you in the first video. Can a single nobody, can a single choice, can a single idea, one contaminant, can that change the world? Can history be altered because somebody decided to do something different? And the answer I would say is yes. But also, as I mentioned before, a lot of things led up to this. You have inside Austria-Hungary, inside the Serbian mindset, this growing animosity and hatred towards the royal family. You have this group that begins to organize itself and come up with a plan. Ultimately, there were 6 of them in this particular plan. 6 young men that they looked at it and said, we are going to assassinate the Archduke. Well, the way they do that, they had figured out what the parade route was and been publicized and been told to the people that were there. And it wasn't a parade like we think of with floats and different flags being carried and bands playing and different groups like that. No, it was basically about 6 vehicles and people lined the streets. They lined the routes, and the Archduke was in a open top vehicle, a convertible is what we think of. He's waving to the crowds and they're cheering for him. And so it was a parade, but not like what we think of as most celebrations, not like the Macy's Day Thanksgiving parade or anything. And the parade route had been publicized. In other words, it had been published. They had been told where it was going to go so people could line the street and be able to see their crown prince. Now, the Serbian rebels that go to do this, they're not even in the area of Serbia. They're in, as I mentioned, what would become a Bosnia area. And so Archduke is going through there. The 6 men line the street in different locations. And each of them have agreed that if they have the opportunity, they will attack and kill the Archduke. So when the caravan of vehicles show up, the first assassin, the first Serbian rebel, is standing there. But he loses his nerve. Later, his story would be that there was a police officer standing behind him, and he wouldn't have time to make the attack. The attacks, most of the men were armed with what we would understand of as the cartoon-type grenade or bomb. You know how in Bugs Bunny and Looney Tune cartoons they have the round black, what looks like a cannonball, and then there's a fuse coming out of it? Well, those were real. Those actually were things. And so he was armed with one of those, and his story was the reason he backed away from it was because he was afraid that he would not have time to light the fuse, throw the bomb at the vehicle, and then have it explode and do what he wanted. So he didn't do it. The second assassin, the vanguard, the line of vehicles pulls up, and he's standing there. He lights his fuse and he throws it. He throws it at the caravan of vehicles. But as I mentioned, it's not just these individuals that are making choices. It's the people that are also driving the vehicles that are making choices. How what we look at as a single nobody and their options change the world. The driver, being aware of his surroundings and realizing what's going on, sees something flying towards his vehicle, and he slams on the gas and speeds up, and it misses. Well, the bomb, for whatever reason, had a 10-second fuse on it, so it took 10 seconds for the bomb to explode, and by that time it happened, the car behind the Archduke's car didn't realize what was going on. It rolled underneath that car and exploded. It slightly injured 2 people inside of it and several people on the sidewalks watching. But nothing super major. But they realized immediately that an attempt had been made on the Archduke's life. And so an assassination attempt had happened there. After the Serbian rebel had thrown the bomb, they knew that they did not want to be captured, tortured, and possibly give up information. So they had pills of cyanide. Now, for those who do not know, cyanide is a toxic drug that if you take it, you will die very quickly. And they wanted to make sure that they did not give up any information for their Black Hand brothers. So he took the cyanide pill and jumped into a river that was near the area where he had just attacked the Archduke Ferdinand. The problem was the cyanide pill was expired. It was old. So it was not potent. It was not potentially deadly to him. All it did was make him vomit, made him very sick. So he survived that. But he also jumped into the river, hoping that he would drown in the water and that he would be able to just drift off and not have to worry about anything anymore. That didn't work either. Remember, as I said, this is not an area where the Serbs were familiar with. So this river that he had seen, that he hoped he would jump into, and after dying from the cyanide poisoning, they wouldn't even be able to get his body as a trophy. The river was 4 inches deep. So he jumps into the river, splashes onto the bed of the river, and is very quickly arrested and taken away. As you can understand, the Archduke and his parade of vehicles are incredibly nervous at this point. So they speed away, they end the tour, they end the parade, and they go to the governor's mansion that's there. While they're there at the governor's mansion, Archduke Ferdinand is furious. He is so mad. Him and his wife had been in that vehicle. His wife, Sophia, was a gracious, wonderful woman. People loved her. And he was so upset this was happening. He says, "This is the way you welcome me to your area with bombs?" Well, eventually, as they calm down, as the situation calms down a little, they want to go visit the wounded at a hospital from this assassination attempt. As far as they know, the assassin had been captured. No more things were going to happen to them. So they do. They pack up in the vehicle and they want to go to the hospital. Well, for whatever reason, somebody made a decision to not tell the driver that the plans were different. So the driver gets in the vehicle, starts going through there, and nobody told him anything different. So he starts going on the original parade route. Well, what problem was that they go on the original parade route. Somebody soon realizes, hey, this isn't to the hospital. Hey, driver, we need to be going to the hospital, they say to him. So they have to stop in this small street. There's not enough room to turn around, and going forward will just get them further away from where they need to be. So the row of cars needs to back up. And while they're waiting for the cars behind them to back up, they're sitting in front of a cafe. Once again, how a decision changed things. One of the other assassins, when he had heard that the Archduke had not been killed, had that his friend been arrested, and that the Archduke had gotten away to the governor's palace, he went to a cafe. He's like, well, my job is done here. Nothing can happen. He went to this cafe. Now it wasn't like a Starbucks. He would have been able to get an alcoholic beverage here, kind of mourn the fact that they missed their opportunity and probably would never have an opportunity this good again. So he's sitting there, And he looks out the window and he sees this line of cars come by and then stop. The Archduke's caravan stops right in front of the same cafe that the one of the 6 assassins was in. So the assassin takes his opportunity. He marches up to the vehicle. He had a small pistol. He fires 2, 3 shots into the vehicle, one of them hitting Sophia, the wife, or Sophie, the wife of Archduke Ferdinand, another one hitting Archduke Ferdinand in the neck. We see here a sequence of events where single choices change world history. The Archduke wants to go through and tour the city. The Black Hand assassins want to kill him. The first assassin backs out. The second assassin, his bomb doesn't work properly. Then Archduke and his people want to go visit they go to the governor's palace. Then they want to visit the people in the hospital. Then they go, somebody did not tell the Arch's driver to change the route. So they get stuck and have to back up. One of the other assassins, the Serbian national, that said, I'm going to go to a cafe and just relax the rest of the day and mourn the fact that this is over, sees them and goes out and murders the Archduke. Now we look at this and say, okay, so how can the murdering of an Archduke, even if he is the crown prince of an empire, how can that spiral the rest of the world into a massive world war where millions of lives and billions of dollars are spent on fighting and nothing changes much, according to the geographic situations here? Now things would change, a lot of things change, but why did that happen? Because these individual choices, these individual men, they went through and made their choices. But because of so many other things that had been lined up before, when their choices were made for them, a domino effect quickly follows. And that will lead us into World War I. Now, I'm going to stop there with this video. Like I said, these videos, I'm going to be making more of them, but they're going to be shorter, so it's not quite so much that you guys have to look at and deal with there and watch. I will continue to make them during spring break, mainly to give you guys something to watch and something to do. All right, there's not going to be too many things where you have to look at it and say, okay, did I answer questions, different things like that. I am going to try to generate some online quizzes, some kind of handouts, paperwork, things that we can work with there. But this video is done there, looking at how the contagion of nationalism and single choices add up to drastic world differences. Have a good day.